local communities that support higher school budgets are going to suffer higher taxes.
Sure.
But budgets in one part of the state affect tax rates all over the state. So is there going to be some sort of punitive measure on districts that don't rein in spending? Because it is going to have an effect on the statewide property tax rate.
You know, I personally believe that the funding system that we have in Vermont is more elegant than it is in the other 49 states. Now, does that mean that people like it? No. Does it mean that anyone likes their property tax system in any of the 50 states? No. Why is that? Because as a nation, we fund our most important obligation in a democratic society, which is the education of our children, through the most aggressive tax that we can imagine, which is the property tax. I have often said, it is beyond me why some president of the United States or some candidate doesn't pass a federal education tax that sends a block grant back to every child in all the 50 states or every state for their children, so that we minimize the amount of money that we have to raise in property taxes to fund education. That may well never happen. Vermont has the most fair system of any of the 50 states. And the way it works is this simple. The more you spend, the more you pay. The less you spend, the less you pay. If you choose to spend $9,000 per pupil in Brattleboro and $9,000 per pupil in Burlington, you're going to pay the same amount. If you choose to spend $6,000 in Bennington and $6,000 in Barnard, you're going to pay less. The same applies to this conversation. Those school boards that have the judgment to reduce spending, their citizens, the people that elected them, will pay a lower property tax rate than those school boards that don't. And I think that we have told so many myths about our school funding formula over the past years that we have lost track of what is true and what is not.
What are you going to do about the $38.6 million that we're not going to receive in stimulus funds this year? How are you going to come up with that money in your budget?
We're working together to figure that out. We made a commitment when we use those federal dollars to ensure that we figured out a plan to recover from what was a great gift from the federal government in a really tough time. So we'll be making a proposal on that in our budget address, but we haven't entirely figured out exactly where that money's going to come.
Can you talk a little bit?
Mandates from Montpelier and how this is a signal that you're against those. What's going on with your early education plan? I haven't heard that mentioned today.
You know, I'm looking forward to the conversation with Vermonters about the way we're spending money. And we all know we have a huge deficit. I've promised that we're going to come up with a plan that closes that deficit. It's going to be a very sobering and, in some cases, unhappy conversation. But I promise you this, we're going to go where the money is. And we know where the money is. The money is the fastest area of growth in our state budgets. Is no different than the fastest area of growth in most of Vermont's state budgets. Healthcare is number one. We're going to come up with a plan to arrest that cost. The second part of it is corrections. And I firmly believe there is a relationship between a rising correction spending and the fact that we do not invest enough in early childhood education when it makes the biggest difference. So we'll be coming up with a plan for that, that bends that curve and connects those two truths, which is the biggest area of growth in the state budget, corrections. Biggest non-violent population locked up per capita in any other state in the country, the state of Vermont. What do we know about them? 90% of them have difficulty reading. They never had early childhood education. Therefore, 95% of drug and alcohol-related addiction. What do? Get smart, find a way to bend the curve, put the resources in communities. So we're at 70% of nonviolent offenders, when their time is up, end up back in prison within 3 years, and many of them much more quickly.
Do you anticipate that's going to be part of this coming year's budget, considering the deficit problems that you just outlined?
Absolutely. You know, I outlined over the last several months in a pretty difficult conversation with Vermonters, that if they elected me governor, we'd begin to bend that curve, and we will.
Can you talk about the size of the deficit,
Well,
the
sure.
budget gap?
Yeah, I mean, the budget got sized to about $154 million.
Mhm.
And it's a sobering number. My hope is to present a budget that doesn't put us back here next year. Now, I understand that's not going to make us popular, but I think it's the right thing to do.
Can you talk a little bit about it all? In terms
Well,
of
you know, it's a little-
how you're going to resolve it?
And one of the things I've found heartening is the number of people who think that we figured it all out already. And I get calls about very specific things, like what to include in a healthcare benefit package in our single-payer healthcare plan, or what not to include, or exactly what line item their particular program might be seen on, and how much in the budget. I just got to tell you, we're not there yet. You know, we slashed the transition budget late in the session last spring because we needed money. So we've got a lot of hardware for people working across the street, but not enough of them. We've been trying to make some appointments, which has taken a lot of energy. We're almost at the end of that. We're diving into all these questions, but to be honest with you, we don't have all the answers yet. But I promise you we will by January 25.
January 6th, and
Well, I know, but that
25th.
2 o'clock.
Give me a break, give me a break on January 6th. Can't that be kind of flowery language? I mean, I looked at some of the other ones.
Governor-elect, can I just jump in on one point to make sure there's no misunderstanding? The question that Stuart asked and then Peter followed up on. And I thought, what I heard the governor-elect say was, if we hadn't gotten the $19 million, we'd have still been working with our colleagues here to figure out what we're going to do about the $23 million. We probably still have to do something. I did not hear him say, and if you did, then that's fine, that we would be standing here mandating those individual specific targets be met.
Right.
What I heard him say was we'd still be doing something with about the $23 million, probably maybe even doing the same thing we're doing today, but not mandated. Did I get that right?
You got that right.
Okay, I just thought maybe there might have been a misunderstanding.
Did you misunderstand me on that?
You're also talking about $23 million on an ongoing basis.
That's right.
So if you're getting rid of $23 million in the transfer this year, does that mean that you're talking about an additional $23 million off the transfer of 13? And
We're just saying it's going to be a continual reduction. It's not a one-time reduction. In other words, we're asking school board members. I'm clearly not being clear. Last year, the legislature asked them to reduce $23 million and gave very specific mandates to particular communities of exactly how much money they each had to reduce to get there. All we're saying is we are not going to tell communities exactly how much they must reduce. We will be reducing the ongoing transfer by $23 million, and we're giving them the time that they need to make the tough choices or to see their property taxes go up. We hope that it'll be the former and not the latter.
So you're talking about $23 million cumulatively over the 2 years.
Nope.
Talking about $23 million this year.
Yes.
And so there's going to be an additional challenge for $23 million in fiscal year 13.
No, because we're hoping that they actually are able to make those reductions next year, and therefore it's an ongoing reduction in their budgets.
But in the letter to them that you sent recently, you said we're going to spread the $23 million out over 2 years. We're going to give you an extra year to do that. And now what I hear you saying is we're talking about $46 million.
That's not, I don't think that's what my letter said.
I think Armando and I could both jump in. I think what he said is it may take you longer to achieve those kind of savings than 1 year. It didn't
Right,
say
$23 million.
What's going on here, Peter, is the general fund transfer, the base will be lower by $23.2 million. Then it'll inflate from there. It's not like you're going to add 23.2 and another 23.2. The base, the general fund transfer, the education fund will be lower once by $23.2 million and grow from there.
Can you,
But you don't know how much you're going to lower it by.
Yes,
You do.
no, it's a one-time shot, 23 million. The base is reduced.
Right.
Then we go forward from there with the regular statutory language that we've always followed.
would you be willing to talk at all about what has caused the increase in the budget gap?
Well, you know, there's a couple of things. You mean in terms of school spending?
No, in terms of the 154 million.
Oh, sure. Again, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Spalding, who's sleeping with those numbers under his pillow.
I really didn't sleep that well last night, boss. But there's a variety of things. One of the biggest pieces is a change in the federal matching rate for Medicaid and global commitment, and that's like $17 million there. There's like $5 million in caseload. There's some money that needs to be added to get the budget stabilization fund to keep it at the 5% through the next fiscal year, and those weren't in the 112. So you add in a variety of pieces like that, and you get up to 145 to 150. And one thing is to say that this is a moving target, you know, and there are certainly things that can then just work on the other side that might help us out too as we go forward. I mean, it's possible, I guess, that revenues might go up some, you know, but we're not right now. We're working with a July 1st forecast, so it is a moving target, but it's closer to 150, maybe even a little bit more than it was the 112 because of a variety of factors. Caseload is rough. We just saw that. You know, we had to add 20 full-time employees to make sure that people were getting their benefits on time. That costs money. There are a lot of little pieces that are adding up.
Do you have a spreadsheet available yet? Are you working with JFO to finalize that?
The Department of Finance and Management and the Joint Fiscal Office, I think, are double checking again at 11 this morning. So it's a continuing process.
Thank you.
And when Senator Doyle comes in the room, we know that his message is, he's been around this building long enough, so it's time to go celebrate holidays. Welcome, Senator. We're glad you're here. Thank you. Delighted to see you. Happy holidays. Happy holidays all year. I just want to say, in anticipation of the governor's final press conference, I hope you'll be good to him. He's served the state with great distinction for many years, and he deserves a kind press conference. Thank you.